Indeed, the drama continues with only 2 weeks remaining in the regular season. Welcome back, friends. I am Bobby Broyles along with Tim McDonald for another episode of This Week in CA Football powered by GEICO. Don't look now, but CA Football currently has the #1 team in the country at the top of the Sports Network poll. That is one of many headlines coming out of week number 11.
Welcome, friends. I love it.
You like that?
Getting intimate with the people. Nice. UNH picks up the #1 ranking, like you said, in the TSN poll. Of course, Coastal Carolina is #1 in the coaches poll. But right now, New Hampshire, that's their first #1 ranking since 2006. The target got a little bit bigger, but let's remember, too, they've been a target all year. They were picked preseason #1 in CA football. Yep. Get it done last week at Rhodey, pick up a win. Again, it wasn't the prettiest win, and it was just a nice road win in CA football because it's a road win. New Hampshire right now, it's interesting. This game versus Delaware coming up, we'll get into it, but a huge matchup. Again, they have 2 more games. Let's remember, there hasn't been a team to finish undefeated in CA football since 2008. New Hampshire, if they keep rolling, they have a possibility to do that.
Yep.
Also have to obviously talk about Maine's huge win at Richmond, Bob. They first forced 5 turnovers. You know, Maine, we talked about it was a trap game for Richmond, and we talked about it all week, and it turned out to be true. It just, they got the job defensively, and Richmond just struggled offensively, only rushed for 58 yards. Still, and then, of course, Villanova gets back on track. We see John Robertson, 3 touchdowns, 1 rushing. I guess we're not going to talk about Villanova. It's just another win, another big win for them. And Delaware, quietly, like we talked about, have won 2 in a row now, 4-2 in CA play with a huge matchup this week. Delaware and New Hampshire have a little bit of history playing each other as the #1 team in the nation.
Yep.
Delaware in 2004 was the #1 team, and in 2003, both times they beat UNH. UNH now, of course, playing at home versus Delaware this week. We'll see what happens.
And, of course, you forgot about the JMU Dukes. 5 games in a row.
Can't forget about them, huh?
Second half comeback over Stony Brook. Now JMU in the top 25 picture as well.
And it should be nice to mention, we talk about playoffs and we talk about all these wins. JMU right now is a team, like you said, I don't know how I forgot about them, but if they win this week at Richmond,
they're in position.
Playoffs, let's not forget, 24 teams make the playoffs. 8 seeds in the playoffs. So, again, Selection Sunday is looming a lot sooner than people think.
With all that being said, we have to begin with the primetime matchup of the day when the red-hot and 25th-ranked JMU comes to Robins Stadium to take on the 14th-ranked Richmond Spiders. 12:30 nationally televised on the NBC Sports Network and the NBC Live Extra app. This rivalry may be taking to new heights this Saturday, Tim, with the loser possibly being on the outside looking in when it comes to the postseason.
Well, the good news for Richmond, this isn't the college football playoff. This isn't the top 4 teams. You don't lose and your season's over. You lose and you can move on.
Yep.
That's what you have to do right now if you're Richmond. Like we said, 5 turnovers last week. Michael Rocco, the quarterback, threw 4 picks. Maine had a blocked punt for a touchdown. Everything went wrong.
Yeah.
It was cold, it was miserable, and it was a tough way to lose. You can forget it and flip the switch. Right now, JMU is a dangerous team. We know what they've done. Since that Delaware loss, but the game we were at, since that Delaware loss, JMU has not looked back. Offensively, they've just been an absolute juggernaut. Like we mentioned before, JMU right now is in a huge opportunity. If they can finish the season with a win this weekend and a win next weekend, I mean, you're not only talking playoffs, you're talking about hosting a possible game. How about this little drama this week in Richmond?
Yeah.
We hear some whispers that Michael Strauss might be coming back. We don't know that for sure. We know he broke his ankle. We know he was on the sideline last week in a boot. Apparently he practiced. That's what people are saying. I don't know if he's going to come back. If he does come back, instantly this offense changes.
Yep.
No disrespect to Mike Rocco, the backup. He's done a great job, but this offense will immediately change with Strauss back in the lineup. That's huge for this game. JMU defensively, 10th in pass defense, 10th in rush defense. So the Dukes aren't going to stop you and make you, not get a lot of yards. The Dukes are just going to score so much. That's what they've been doing during this stretch. And Vad Lee has just put himself in this conversation. How about in the last 6 games, 17 touchdowns passing, 1 interception. He's putting himself in the Player of the Year situation. I know a lot of people, Jonathan Football is looking great too, but this is a huge win. I don't know. It's the game of the week, right down the road, Bob. I don't know what else you're looking for on late Sunday in CA football.
Amazing stats. You got to love the rivalry with the throwing the Michael Strauss. Only in a rivalry that happens.
And let's not forget, who does Richmond play next week too? William Mary, the 2 Virginia teams to end the season.
You can also catch that game live, like we said, on NBC Sports Extra. At 1, the top-ranked team in the FCS hosts Delaware in the Dungeon. The Blue Hens have a golden opportunity here, Tim. In the last 2 weeks, they play Villanova, New Hampshire, and that could control their playoff fate.
They definitely control their playoff fate. Right now, they're sitting at 6-4. We look back on the season and we talk about resume wins. Arguably, the best win that Delaware's had this season is that win over JMU, which, by the way, looks better each and every week.
Yep.
When you talk about resume wins and you talk about what you need to do to put yourself in the playoffs, it's in front of you right now if you're Delaware. You're playing at New Hampshire, the #1 team in the nation. UNH, is, like I said, coming off that win over Rhodey, but still, what an opportunity for Delaware. Wes Hills and Jalen Randolph, when these two running backs for Delaware have got it going, Delaware's been hard to stop, okay?
Yep.
Both have over 500 yards, and both have 11 touchdowns combined, which is the same amount of touchdowns as Trent Hurley, the quarterback, has thrown this season. If Delaware can find a ground game, I think that'll be tough, but if Delaware can find a ground game, they're going to have a chance versus UNH. Sean Goldrich, the quarterback for UNH, we see him back for the first time last week. 25 of 33, Bob. 3 touchdowns passing, 1 touchdown rushing, so it looked like he didn't really miss a beat at all. Of course, he found his favorite wide receiver twice. R.J. Harris had a career-high 210 yards receiving. It's going to be tough to Delaware stop UNH. We know UNH plays so well at home. UNH has won 30 of their last 32 overall in the dungeon. If UD can get the ground game going, I think they have a chance, but still, New Hampshire defensively, they've just been getting it done. 10 different players this season have interceptions for UNH. Expect UNH to have a little bit more of an idea of what's coming for Delaware because they know Delaware has to win these last 2 games to make the playoffs.
At 3 on Comcast, Sportsnet, and CA.TV, William & Mary looks to stay in the mix in the playoffs, but have a tough test at Towson. 2 similar styles for these teams,
You know,
Tim.
you read the blogs and you look at a national scene of FCS football, and a lot of people are discounting this William & Mary team because, like we talked about, they don't maybe have that huge win. They won at Stony Brook, but the other games that they've lost to Villanova, they've lost to New Hampshire. I still think, personally, the Tribe can make a case for the playoffs if they win these last 2 games. Of course, it's going to be easier said than done. This week they have to play Towson. These are 2 teams right now who, like to set the tone on the ground. Abdul Sabor is the rushing leader in CAA football, the running back for them. He's played great. He had over 100 yards last week again. Yes, they only won 17-7 versus Elon, but still, like we say, a win in CAA football is a win in CAA football.
Yep.
Not to mention, they're playing Towson, like we said. Darius Victor is the 2nd leading rusher in CAA football. It's 2 teams that right now love to set the tone on the ground. Towson, I think we talked about the struggles passing the ball. When you can't have balance, it's just got to be tough defensively because Towson defensively, yes, they lost. They gave up 40 points to Villanova. They didn't play that poor.
Yeah.
This is still a Towson defense. Ryan Dallaire this week, he was named to the Buck Buchanan Award watch list. Congrats to him. He leads the CAA in sacks with 11. Still, I just think it's so hard for Towson. If you can't get the yards up offensively, only had 111 passing yards last week. It's hard to just say, okay, let's run the ball and see what works there. William & Mary, expect them to get the ground game going. If they can win here and then pull it out next week, again, it's versus Richmond. It's a rivalry game. The Tribe has to be talked about for playoffs.
On the American Sports Network and CA.TV at 7, Villanova welcomes Albany to Philly. The Wildcats bounced back nicely last week and can still hope for one of those top seeds on Selection Sunday with a strong finish.
All Villanova has done is 8-2 right now in the season. They're 6th in both polls, which I think is a little bit of a slap in the face if you're asking me. Villanova got it done last week, and they got it done. It was a big win over Towson, and they got it done in the second half, 21 unanswered points. John Robertson, like we mentioned, has been the key. But how about this Villanova defense? We have to give them a little bit of credit. Joe Sarnese picked up the Defensive Player of the Week in CAA football, had a pick 6. And this Villanova D, 2nd right now in CAA in points per game, 19.5, 104 rushing yards per game allowed. I just think this Villanova team right now is on a mission still. They can still get a top 4 seed in my mind if they win out. Albany right now, they played better last week. Will Fiocchi, the quarterback, threw for 4 touchdowns. Again, though, they had to earn those points late versus Delaware. Ended up losing. Really, that second half, they just didn't come out to play in the 3rd quarter. Right now, the run struggles for Albany they've hurt this team really big. The last 2 weeks they played New Hampshire and Delaware, and they haven't quite haven't found any answers on the ground, and that's forced them to go to the air. Right now, Albany is looking to get back on track, but I just think it's the wrong time, bad place for Villanova, too, because this Villanova team just needs to keep on winning.
And outside of Albany having such a great season, they're out to really top it off for the Great Danes this year would be a signature win in conference play.
That's true. They have 2 chances left in the season.
Yep. So, in the rest of this week's conference action, beginning at 1 o'clock, Rhode Island will be at Stony Brook.
This is the Stony Brook team last week who scored 24 points. You're feeling good in the first half versus JMU. You come out in the second half, and the offense just can't find anything. It's another heartbreaker for this team, and it's been a question of finishing games. And Stony Brook hasn't done it. And then Rhode Island, you look at that game versus New Hampshire. It was 21-14 in the 3rd quarter. You're thinking, okay, Rhodey's hanging around and they're playing well. Good. Lyle McCombs, the running back, is running the ball well. They found some success, but then just a couple of big plays, a fumble here, a pick there. Both of these teams right now, we talk a lot about teams struggling in CAA football. They just need to find a way to win, and that's exactly going to be the key this week for these 2 teams right now. Both of them need to get in the win column. Stony Brook probably a little bit more desperately, although Rhodey still has to find their first win of the season.
And at 3, Maine looks to keep the momentum rolling off that upset win over Richmond as they hit the road to take on Elon.
Really impressed by the Black Bears last week. The quarterback, Drew Belcher, just continues to grow. We know he's not the true starter for this team. He took over halfway through, but still, he led the squad last week with 92 rushing yards. And then, on the other hand, we keep talking about the fight in Elon, and And it's corny, and it's a little silly to sit there and say, man, they keep fighting every week. But they really do.
They did.
And you look at that loss, I mean, to go on the road and lose at William & Mary by a score of 70-7 against a William & Mary team that is still a very good team.
And it was 17-0 at half.
It's just, you know, you have to take a lot away if you are that team. And again, Maine's going down to Elon. You know, ironically, both of these two teams, yes, you say, oh, this game really doesn't mean much in the grand scheme of things. Look at who both of these teams play next week. So you're telling me right now, Maine and Elon, Maine plays New Hampshire at home, Elon plays JMU. Both of these teams right now, they're not just throwing in the towel. They have a lot to play for in these next 2 weeks.
Absolutely.
That shouldn't change at all this week.
CAFootball.com will have television clearance information this weekend, and CA.TV will again simulcast the William & Mary at Towson and UAlbany at Villanova broadcast.
You can find CA Football on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I tell the people every week, Bob, and you can use the hashtag CAFB.
The CA.TV crew resumes its on-campus series this weekend as Alex Souza and Eric Weberg will be in Durham for the big game between UNH and Delaware. Stay with cafootball.wordpress.com for all the coverage from New Hampshire, and be sure to tune in next Tuesday for the season finale of Going Deep.
And what exactly is the Yak? People ask me all the time. Yeah, it's the official CA Football podcast. We actually have one. It's back tomorrow with analysis from around the league, and of course, also from our guy Alex Souza. You can make sure to catch it on the blog as well.
You forgot to say special guest Kirk Dudley, JMU.
Voice of the Dukes, man.
Of
Sorry,
course. Only 2 weeks left in the regular season, everyone. Enjoy the games this weekend.